Back with another Bible in a minute. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 7, it says, "Therefore do not become partakers with them." Who's them? What's the therefore? Well, go back and look at verse 6. Verse 6, Paul says, "See that no one deceives you with empty words, for because of these the wrath of God comes upon the sons of obedience." So the people he's saying don't become partakers with them is referring to previous verses as well, but he's also talking about those who speak words of doctrine that are false, false doctrines, false teachers. And so don't be partakers with them. Verse 8, "For you were once darkness." Notice he doesn't say you were in darkness. He says you actually were darkness by the evil deeds that we did before we became Christians. He says you were once darkness, but now you are light. Not in the light, you are light. You are the light of the world. Just as Jesus was the light of the world, now we're the light of the world. And he says, "Walk as children of the light." Then in verse 9, in parentheses, this is, "For the fruit of light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth," in parentheses. When you see statements in parentheses, that means they were added in the margin by a later translator, not like your Bible translator, ESV, New American Standard, NIV, anything like that. It was actually written in the margin by someone who was copying the manuscript from one parchment to another parchment, and in order to explain what they felt like the author was saying, or if the author was still alive, if Paul was still alive when someone was copying this, they could write a little marginal note if Paul wanted to provide clarification. But we don't know exactly where this note comes from. We just know it's in parentheses, which means it was a marginal note in the side of the manuscript. But what is he saying? Well, the fruit of light is goodness. This is the Greek word agathosine, which means uprightness of heart and life. So it's not just being a good human being, it's actually having an upright, a righteous heart and life. Like when you live in such a way where you do good things. Then he says one of the other elements of the fruit of light, or living in the light, or being the light, is righteousness, dikaiosine. And that word means a condition acceptable to God. And you go back and you read the kings of Israel in the book of Kings and Chronicles, and it'll say this person did what was right in their own eyes, or this person did what was right in the eyes of God. And so the goal is always to answer the question, whose eyes are you right in? And hopefully it's God's eyes, not your eyes. And so that is what righteousness, it's doing the right things. How do you know what the right things are? Well, you've got to read the Bible, and you've got to do the things God says to do, and don't do the things God says not to do. And then he will find you righteous in his eyes. And then the third thing in this fruit of light is truth, walking in truth. The Greek word aletheia, which we have covered in many verses, many videos before. But it's not just, hey, well, that's true for you and this is true for me. No, that's not what Paul anywhere uses this word to refer to, because the Greek word aletheia means absolute truth. It is true regardless of the context. It is what is objectively true in every situation. And he says we as believers must walk in that truth, goodness, righteousness, and truth. Verse 10, "As you try to learn what is pleasing to the Lord." So what he's saying is, if you want to be a mature believer, you've got to first walk in the light. And that's really the point of this video, is to see the first step of how to be a mature believer, how to walk in spiritual maturity. You've got to walk in the light. You've got to avoid the deeds of darkness. And that is how we do that, by trying to learn. Verse 10, learn what is pleasing to the Lord. That word learn means to test, to approve, to discern, to examine. And so there are things that we have in our culture today that they're not listed as sins in the Bible because they didn't exist in that time. We have to learn what is pleasing to the Lord, what kind of behavior, what kind of speech, all that stuff, what is pleasing to the Lord, and then do those things. That is Ephesians chapter 5, verses 7 through 10.